use this new dye and get to the tone that the consumer likes because the consumer has already made it in his head that that product has to be in that tone, and when it doesn't give it to you, it is the first thing that the consumer believes that they are in a product that may be damaged because it does not have the same color and there is a bacteria that reduce the hue. You can be milked and no longer consume it.
One of the things that really strikes me is how much there's a lack of trust between the consumers and these grocery stores, for example, because like over time we've gotten farther and farther away from understanding where our food comes from and from understanding true nutrition. And I love what David is saying because
That's exactly what resilience do. It makes you alert to what you really need and how you need to adapt for those needs. So this is why it's so important that we understand that the process of adaptability.
The food itself is something that can be pushed aside, and then next thing you know, you have like a supplement that gives you all the energy you need for your body. Because after all, like food is a chemical process that goes on in your body. Anyways, it might be.
Welcome to the Ethics Guild podcast again. We have our friend and chemist David Andrade. Like, we have such a pleasure to have our own chemist in the show. We have my homeboy Kevin Del Rio. You already know he's part of the family, and we have Autumn. You just can't see her, but trust me, she's gonna have some bomb fire questions and a lot of participation. So, what are we talking about today? Preservatives. What are the good ones? Which one are the bad ones? And also, what should we look for? What's in our food? What's in there that we are not aware that can cause harm? But also, what kind of preservatives are good? So that's how we're going to start today's show. And I'm going to first, obviously, talk to David how he wants to start marinating this chicken stew we got here.
Yeah.
Go on, David. Where would you like to begin discussing preservatives with David?
Well, I believe that to first understand why we use preservatives, we have to think from the very fact of preparing a food. We know that all foods, from the moment you start or already grow, a vegetable or you take out a fish, you throw a fish out of the water, or the moment you kill any animal to eat our meat, the clock begins tick, 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 tick to mark us that a decomposition process has already begun. Because why? Because in animals, at the same time, the same thing happens to humans as when we die or when the animal dies. The animal is already beginning a decomposition process. Why? Because in our body there are good and bad bacteria. So the moment you die comes the fight, the bad bacteria, the good bacteria, and decomposition begins. That's why you see that there are parts in it. In Asia, it seems to me that people eat your fish, take it out, and almost move and still cook it for you. It is to ensure that the fish meat is the freshest. No, so everything from the moment it leaves our body, even the milk from the moment it leaves the animal's breast, the composition process already begins. Why? Because we are surrounded by an environment that is loaded with many bacteria? No, then. Otherwise, we have good control from the moment we process this food to eat it properly. It can already be a contamination for this from the very moment. Since we are going to prepare the food, let's say we have already bought it in a supermarket, then the one that the supermarket made. Let's prepare meat, chicken, any of these meats. Did this supermarket buy meat from a Kamal or a slaughterhouse site where they had a good washing process of the animal part, let's say good sanitization during the entire package slaughtering process so that it lasts in the freezer and always maintaining the cold chain, right? Because not having a good cold cream can also be contamination. Although the entire previous process would have been the most correct with all the health regulations, and maybe this will go away, we are going to have problems. So this is at the level to take it to the house. What I'm going to do is that if I don't have a good process at home to cook that food, it's going to hurt me. So I do it at home. And don't say in an industry. Why? And here, that is what I used to express an example. If each one of us takes half a kilo of orange and makes a juice in each of our houses, it will taste different. Although you don't believe it being an orange or going to the same place, the same farm. Why? Because maybe me. Handle differently than oranges, clean them differently. My process is sanitized within. The whole process can be different. And in turn, I am not going to get the same amount of juice from any of the three. Why? Because nature is wise and not. It's not that if I cut an orange, that orange is going to give me a cup of orange juice. There are going to be more and less variations. They're not all alike. Change in the industry. When you want to process food, you always need to obtain juice that has the same color, the same flavor, and the same amount of sugar. Therefore, these foods are manipulated a lot there so that they are repetitive and the same. Why? Because you have to keep a brand. A brand positioning. So what do we do? Then brand A or brand B or brand C juice. We can distinguish it by way of our taste buds. They can differentiate them, and there are people who say, oh, this juice is from such a company. The one here is from another because of the flavors. So foods are going to vary a lot in all these components because yes. Can there be greater oxidation of these by the same environment? It can have different color and different taste, sweeter, more sour, more acidic. So within an industrial process, we cannot always maintain those sour taste standards. Sweetness. So what do you do? What do companies do? Since it has to be standard, they have to add antioxidants in this case to prevent it from oxidizing and thus also change the flavor. And they put products that give it a viscosity. So that our mind also gets confused and says, this food is concentrated because it is a little thick or comes from fruit pulp already. So you have to also put a preservative on it. Why? Because this product is going to be on a hanger. It's going to be in your refrigerator and you need to establish a maximum date on which that product or has to be consumed. Because if it is not going to cause any inconvenience to your health, then you have to make sure that you use a preservative that prevents this food that you are going to ingest from decomposing, from being altered, and that is why preservatives are used, which will preserve that all these characteristics are maintained and do not change. Above all, ensure they don't harm you.
I want Kevin and Oren to generate a question for you because what you're talking about is very interesting. I find the explanation of the process is very interesting, not how For example, you can make your food at home and it will vary depending on how it is contaminated and oxidized. How do you prepare it? No, and I want to see what Kevin and Oren have on their mind. I imagine reading everything you give. Kevin, Autumn, what questions do you have? Because it's pretty interesting what they're saying, what he's saying about, how they process like something like an orange juice, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Like one of the things that I noticed is that in nature, like things aren't consistent in nature, but in brands and companies, and in human nature, we try to keep things consistent, and to maintain a brand image. That's what's needed, consistency. Um, but nature doesn't always produce consistency. One orange, like you said, one orange doesn't produce one cup of one orange might produce a cup of orange juice, but another orange might produce half a cup, and another orange might just produce a quarter of a cup. So you're not always gonna like get the same yield out of each orange because nature doesn't work in that way. So in the human nature or in the corporate nature, they try to maintain the consistency by manipulating the oranges or they try to just basically they don't want the oranges to rot on us either. Like preservatives are good because they don't want it to rot on us, and we still want those nutrients, or we still want that flavor. Um, so I guess one of my questions is like, what in in cities, what is the way that what are some healthy preservatives that they do put in orange juice? Like, what are some brands that do it right, quote unquote, like the best way that they can do it? And what are some brands that really take it the GMO, fully inorganic, or fully chemical wise state?
You know, there is food anyway. They have to see. I would believe that you have to see what type of preservatives you have because each of these brands has preservatives or preservatives. Second, there are others that would only add an antioxidant, such as a vitamin, or for example, a vitamin E, the same vitamin C as. To obtain the amount of vitamin C that our body requires, we will need many, many oranges. That's why synthetically, or only if it has, there are some that tell you within the nutritional table what the components are, and that the one that has the least amount of components, I would drink that juice. I know, and that they need a reservoir and antioxidant so that these drinks can last a little longer on the hanger. And here I tell you, as long as they tell me the longer the date in a drink, I would say it's full of preservatives, because while you need a lot more time to be on the hanger, you need that. An adequate amount to maintain, or that it has a preservative. But if you leave and they tell you that your juice is 2, 3 days old, you are not using preservatives anymore. And that if there are brands that sell you juice that they take it out and tell you no, 24, 48 hours, they are not commercial. Let's put it that way. But bottled, I don't think it will last beyond a week. I don't have a brand here, but it is very important that to illustrate all this, we could have something like what brands, and say, look, see, this component is the one that can complicate this preservative the most for you. For example, I have a list of preservatives that have been studied for these molecules that could generate or that are already approved. For example, in laboratory mice, that causes intestinal discomfort, others that could cause respiratory problems, problems in hyperactivity in children that has already been tried. So preservatives are not new. They are realizing that they are not inert. but rather they are generating important changes in behavior and in our health, and some that have come out because they have been proven to have some components that is being hepatotoxic, for example.
Mhm. Autumn, I'm pretty sure you're interested. I know that like for example, you probably shop and sometimes you don't even what's in what components are in a food. What are you have any question with for David regarding this topic?
You know, I think one of the things that really strikes me is how much there's a lack of trust between the consumers and these grocery stores, for example, because like over time we've gotten farther and farther away from understanding where our food comes from and from understanding true nutrition. And I love what David is saying because right, like it's not normal to have things go for such a long time for like the shelf life. And obviously that means that it's so pumped with chemicals. And I think like for myself, the reason that I went on this whole journey of looking into preservatives is because my hormones started going out of balance. So I guess one of my questions for you, David, is how does the food that we consume affect our hormones, yeah, especially cortisol levels? Like what can we look out for when we're grocery shopping, and how can we grocery shop with like our hormones in mind?
No. Sí, sí, es complicada la pregunta.
I told you, te lo dije. David got that smell like, damn, that's a damn good question.
Pregunta. Bueno, but no, it is not just a component, and it has not only been determined in, let's see, first we must say that chemicals are not bad. It must be said that chemicals are not bad, and that in many of the foods that we have in supermarkets or that we have at our disposal to eat, they are because and consumers who demand them. Yes, with those characteristics. So marketing goes and does a test, or you like juice, and that's where it starts, right? Or did you like this fry and say, no, you're not crispy. I need the crunch to be made when I chew it, or it needs to be sweet but not affect my health in terms of calorie content, or that the drink I'm drinking is very soft or very liquid. So what? So what does the filler do with what it has? Generates a product with consumer demands. So that's where these existing products or these enhancers come in. And they make a product according to the consumer's demands. If we, the consumers, do not change the demands, they will continue to sell us food. Let's put it this way, it is not going to favor us then by putting these new molecules to a product that we can do at home. But in the industrialized form, they cannot do it the same as in our home because they have to do much in its production. Their batches have to be very large. They are not going to be the same potatoes as us who select the potatoes, peel them, generate frying in a different way than it is done in an industrial process or any other food. So these products that we add to them are what they are going to generate, not now, but, or let's put it this way, as if due to the accumulation of these products, those that are going to generate a problem later. At the moment in the hormonal part, I have not seen a product that generates this. Perhaps the products where they generate the presence of hormones, but in animals that is in the process much further behind how they raise or how they generate that meat to give it to us. It is what generates the problem in the cortisol part or in the hormonal part, but the foods that are generated are additives or products that generate these consumer demands. And these are the ones that these chemicals that by accumulation can generate problems. For example, one preservative that they often use in bread, which is propionate. And it tells you that it can cause migraines, headaches in some children, irritability, sleep problems, attention problems. And it is something that you put in bread to preserve a little and prevent it from being contaminated by a fungus, for example. But that in the bread part, but the hormonal part as such, a chemical that generates that, not yet, but the hormones that may be given to the animal to generate the amount of meat. Of course, it entails an alteration in our own body. Let's remember that our body is called, there is something called homeostasis, which is keeping everything in balance when a strange sotasis or something strange arrives our body. It already works to defend oneself, to generate changes, to reject this. So this stress that the cell has in our body is what can lead to the appearance of diseases. But the thing about the gold one, still a product like these, not in the hormonal part. But I'm telling you, it could be, it's the hormones that give it to the animals and this is taken away. And that's what can cause this. But preservatives as such, we no longer talk about irritations, digestive problems in our intestines, conduct and behavior problems. Because as a psychologist, you know that part of our intestinal health will also influence our immune system and our way of behavior. Even people who suffer from the autism spectrum, who are within the autism spectrum, are people who are not going to tolerate gluten. Don't you? So let's say there's a connection between our gut and our behavior, or there's a part of our brain that communicates, has communication with our gut. And according to this, we're going to have some kind of behavior.
Autumn, I think David was really up to the challenge. You had your question was so good and so well put together, Autumn. But that brings me, and I love your question and the answer, because I do want to bring this more into the hormones in, and again, it's not a preservative for animals. But for example, we understand here in the US, there's a huge manipulation of the industry of meat. And we have, I don't think there's a real study, and I ignore this, so don't quote me on this because I'm not an expert in that area. But we're talking about hormonal changes, and we see that happening in very frequently. Yeah, I especially because it's coming from the meat, and I love how you distinguish, David. Like it's not the food that we eat in the supermarket, but it's the big possibility is the meat. Could you walk us through a little bit about how that looks? Like what is being fed to our, for example, pigs, chickens, poultry, and then sold to us? What is the what how do they manipulate that?
No, no. Animals first. When there is a breeder of an animal, what does the person who is creating that animal want? Decrease the times so that you can sell it. Let's put it this way. Do you want that animal to reach a weight much faster? You need that. Give you an ideal weight in a short time, right? So here comes the manipulation by selling products to generate that change. So that's when the hormonal part comes in, where you want the meat of this animal to grow and increase much faster, and that many times it is not even the right flavor that we ate a long time ago. You say it's different, it tastes different to me. And it is because this manipulation also generates a change in the lean shape of the letter we. If you realize, if you go to A and eat, and you manage to eat an animal tied up in a field in a much healthier way, the food is going to be very different. You have been able to eat here, and you know that if you go to a grandparent's farm, those of us who were able to have grandparents who had a field and who raised their animals, the flavor is very different because they only do the treatment with corn, with what the animal eats, with rice, and there is nothing. Strange that it is given to the animal. So these factories, well, these factories, but these farms, what they want to generate is that the animal gains weight in a very short time, and for that it introduces hormones or products that generate growth. Muscular, and this also represents a very large effect on the human being. Sure, because you're consuming something weird, something you shouldn't consume then there, perhaps. There you go. Perhaps there you go, what you are now describing to me. Not that the effect of the hormonal that exists in our body, when, for example, from what I understand here, is that we always want to manipulate time because time means money. And of course, in that investment of manipulating time, these hormones are used that make you grow much faster. But that same hormone is integrated into biology, anatomy of the animal. Of the animal, and we ingest that no matter how much we cook it, because it is already part of itself. And that presents. For example, I was reading and I prepared a little. I was reading. For example, in recent years, thyroid cases that exist, they have reached very high numbers in the last 45 years, which is an alarming one. There are many women who are also suffering a lot from, for example, mood swings, and that their menstruation is here. They are getting premenstruation long before the age of 40. And these are alarming things. Why? Because we say, well, this used to happen to us, but now it's happening more commonly. But we have to understand where these changes come from. And these changes, as we are expressing here, come from the product, from how we raise our animals that we consume. I don't know if the boys have a question. Guys, please jump in because I think we opened the Pandora box today.
Yeah, yeah, literally. It's interesting with the women reaching cycles so fast in their 40s, and it's dropping age by age because of the foods, and how the foods are being just chemical, like all the meats are just all chemicals inside, but they have to preserve the meats at the same time. Like, how does it get to big cities without the preservation and pushing out massive amounts of meat as well? Like, how do you get the animals to even produce fast too? Like, they're probably even giving them like some kind of hormones just to even reproduce, just to have just to have sex, in a sense, for the animals to do that, then for them to have all that, then for it to be raised. And it's a long hard process, especially to feed a city. Like, I think about New York and New Jersey, and just on the map itself, it's just all concrete, and the farms are like kind of around the cities, but they're not like full farms to feed that city. So we're getting foods from all over the area, and it's a big problem to have, to feed a lot of people without ingesting the chemicals, and it's one of those hard ones to solve. It's a need, but at the same time, it's like, why are these chemicals causing the problems in our body? Like, if there was a way to literally dissect the chemical again and figure out like which strand is causing, like, for example, let's say IBS. Like that comes a lot from chemical products as well. Like, I wonder which strands do that. But David, would you happen to know like how IBS is caused with the certain chemicals and why it happens?
Eh, ¿Qué causa qué enfermedad? Disculpa que no, la traducción.
He's saying the IBS. Like, can you so he can see it? What is IBS? So he can see it, read it.
Oh yeah, irritable bowel syndrome.
Syndrome.
¿Síndrome de qué? ¿IBS?
Síndrome de como del irritable del
Alcohol.
it's irritable bowel syndrome.
Yeah, it's like inflammation in the gut. This is one to
Okay. Sí,
Yeah,
sí, sí.
he got
Okay.
it. He got it.
Okay.
it was descriptive, right?
Yeah.
Gracias por la traducción. Let's see. All products that become irritating will generate irritability in the colon. They can be this from the same dye. Then why do they use dyes? Because someone likes strawberry yogurt to be this shade of color, and they use an artificial chemical coloring product. It already generates that color and it can generate irritation for you, but it doesn't wait for me. So it doesn't cause me any inconvenience, but it can cause you because your immune system reacts differently to this compound. And that's what I talked about at some point here. Are they banning a dye? Yeah, red number 3. Having seen the studies that it can be a possible carcinogen or K, then everyone is already leaving the red product 3, but they have to try other dyes that are so far on the green list that we can use it and that do not cause so much problem. So what does the formulator have to do? Use this new dye and get to the shade that the consumer likes, because the consumer has already made it in his head that that product has to be in that shade when he doesn't give it to you. What is the first thing that the consumer believes that they are giving me about a product that may be damaged because it does not have the same color and there is a bacteria that reduced the hue? It may be damaged and I no longer consume it. Or another consumer assessment is that that product is no longer thick just because of the hue, or they can say no, it is that the other was more concentrated because the hue was more intense. Well, changing the subject, if you don't do it enough to explain why you have to use it, and this can be a cost-effective product. Also for colon irritation, for example, there is a product that we see as it is. It is said that I have done a study in mice of benzoic acid, sorbate, and potassium, sodium nitrite, where sorbate and potassium produced a higher spectrum of intestinal irritation in animals. And now that you go look at many foods, see which ones have their potassium bait, and then, but not all of us will be harmed by the same molecule. They're the organism. As we know, we're not all the same. Then each one may have a predisposition to certain components to generate irritability. That is why a deeper study has not yet been generated. a complete cancellation of this preservative is not generated because the number of people insured is not that high.
Autumn, what do you think about this?
It's so interesting because I feel like I understand the need for like why they would use preservatives and like the needs for the markets. But for us as consumers, I think like David was saying, like we like the colors, we like the marketing, the branding, oh this tastes good, or we like this crunch. But yet we don't realize that like our food is what keeps us going. And I think a lot of food can also like damage our mental health, and a lot of us can fall into depression because of what we're eating, right? With how much sugar we're intaking, and just like he's saying too, the preservatives that interact with our bodies, like it's not the same for everybody. How do we? I don't like. How do we bring awareness to like mindful eating, or just being more mindful of what we're consuming without like blindly going in and shopping based off of imagery or marketing and color, but rather like what's more healthiest for us?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question.
Now, the consumer is much more aware of what he needs to eat previously. The amount of junk food or not good for us did not indicate on the nutritional table the percentage of fat, sugar, salt. Now, even in many countries like Ecuador, traffic lights are set. In other countries, the amount that each one has is set. These are either high in sugar, high in salt, high in sun, and ACEs on the train, sodium or salt. And now we are more aware of what we are going to eat, and we are even opting for products that have them. The least amount of preservatives, or just like these healthy snacks that are made of nuts, which do not have preservatives, and perhaps the only preservative there is salt. Because let's see, there are natural preservatives. Yes, they exist, but some modify your flavor. Let's put it this way. One example, a natural preservative, let's say those who used it many years ago, for example, is salt. There were already foods where they put them in salt and preserve them for a long time, but it changes the flavor profile. For example, in a canned anticos, the preservative, there is the vinar, the percentage of salt. You don't need a UN, and you can make fruit vinegar or key. There are already that type of products. There are already products that have the least amount of preservatives, and or it tells you free of trans fats, because previously there were all unsaturated fats with which they filtered food. Now, not anymore. Now they tell you what kind of fat, because we are being much more aware. Let's see, we are currently creating food consumers who are much more aware of what we are going to eat. Why? Because COVID. I think it was a hard lesson that we all had to learn to be able to take care of ourselves, and from there the awareness has come. For the consumer to look on the label what products he has and whether it is beneficial for me or not. If there are products and you have to review it, then it is good. I no longer have the vision of a supermarket to tell you, I lean towards this brand, not to promote the brand, but this way. How do you preserve that food, or how do you preserve that food? We get to our house, we eat, I think it's interesting.
Because also what Autumn was saying too, it's like it's hard for somebody to change into these good eating habits because, like for example, when David and I, we lived in Ecuador I lived in Ecuador for a while, a few years, and y- when I came back to the States, I was like, what is organic food? I didn't even know what that meant because everything in Ecuador is organic. You go climb a tree, you get a mango. You go get Kevin's favorite fruit, bananas, and it's like right, you just get it from there, oranges. So in when you go to a country like Ecuador, where obviously there's also poverty, but you're able to also see what organic really means, and that's what you eat most of the time. It's fresh from the sea to your table. And it's hard for like industrialized cities like New York that people understand the the habit of what organic means, and also the habits, right? Think about this: we live in an industrialized country, and what does that do? The marketing of McDonald's, and they need to push that animal and feed the beast of their industry and make more money and make the investors happy. So there is a different culture too, and it's going to be very difficult. Think about it: if we really want to eat healthy, how would you make McDonald's to be more organic?
Mm.
They won't do it. They will go out of business. It's just simple, and it's hard for people to understand that we have a choice on what we consume. And I love what you were saying, Autumn, too, because and David is exposing that we also play a responsibility on what we demand these industries to produce for us. And as much as they are responsible, we're the one that choose as well. We're the one that buy the product. Because if we didn't bought any of these products and we were buying more of the organic choices, even though they were a little bit more expensive, unfortunately, you know, perhaps the behavior of these industries will also change, but the McDonald's will always be there. Why? Because what is the easiest, cheapest way of buying food? You go to McDonald's. And it's unfortunate who pays the biggest price is the people that live in the most poor sections because they can't afford a really good organic meal. And I see this in the States a lot. It's different in Ecuador. Even the people that have the least eat organic every day, but
Yeah.
you don't see that in the States. It's like they're forced to buy the $5 value meal because that's all they have. And I want to pass this back to you, Autumn, because you had a good point. Like, what now that you know that David was telling this, what do you think?
Mhm. I mean, it's so like difficult because like you're saying, right? Like in Ecuador, everything is already natural and organic. So it kind of makes me a little cynical how the US like we like
I'm
they're
sorry, you make me laugh right now.
I'm sorry, but like I think they are always trying to make a profit, right? Because if something can last longer on the shelves, then they can make more money. And I was actually just telling Kevin, like, here where we live, I've noticed they opened around like 7 supermarkets. And I'm like, why do they keep making more supermarkets? And they get bigger and bigger each time. And I'm like, why aren't they opening more farmers markets or more, like those other little markets where you get to interact with your local farmer. It's like for us, we'd have to go out of our way, probably like an hour or so, just to go to meet our local farmers and have discussions about food. So it's just interesting. I feel like for us, at least in the States, it's kind of like this cycle where like you kind of have to break this boundary of pushing past marketing. And like I was telling you guys, but David, a friend of mine, lives in Italy, and she came back to visit her family during this vacation, and her boyfriend noticed that everything was based off of color, like the candy, the food, everything is so colorful, just to like get you to buy it and eat this like colorful candy, and it's not good for you at all. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I find like we can consume these types of food, and yet we all like end up going through health problems, right? And then we're like, oh, we got to go to the doctor and we spend more money. But nobody goes right to the food. Like even the doctors, at least here, they don't really tell you like, we'll first fix your diet and then we'll look at like a medication to give you. How do you interact with your doctors to kind of like make sure, or how to like have a healthy conversation with your doctors about food?
Go autumn.
For instance, limiting what he mentioned now. Well, I had a university professor who was a pediatrician. So a mother approached the doctor and said, "My son isn't eating. Give me a vitamin to stimulate his appetite because he's not eating properly and will be weak." He demanded the doctor, and the doctor answered him. He told us in class, "The remedy costs you a price, $10, but you go to the market and buy spinach, watercress, vegetables, and no, and you don't spend more than $10. And the child feeds from a natural source. And he's got more iron, he's fed, and he's gonna be better, which is just giving him the medicine." This is what I'm going to say is true. We as consumers generate people who give us bad or junk products or products that we do not need in our body, that only satisfies hunger but does not nourish. And this creates a health problem for us much later. Problems there, we are going to have problems in the diabetes part, which is already something hormonal, diabetes problems, heart problems, high blood pressure due to not having eaten, because the only thing we did was satiate. Hunger, but not truly feeding it.
And that has a lot of psychology. I'm going to answer it's because you brought him to a psychological camp. But Kevin, I want to hear you, Kevin, because I know, like for example, I remember when we worked together, there were certain foods that really, you couldn't eat. I remember you were having a hard time during those times, Kevin.
Yeah, like so a lot of processed foods, they just like they're not good for me. I had to eat like more natural foods. I realized a lot of foods was causing a lot of inflammation in my stomach. It made me feel bloated, and it just really my body took more energy to break it down than than to just go through. So after eating, I'll just feel sluggish, and I'll feel like it'll be like the itis, but the itis on times 10 mode, just because my body needed to overwork to break it down. I remember I was looking at this one study before where they had back then foods they were so natural. Everything was like free. Like you had to make your soups. You had all these natural foods to eat, and then it started to dwindle down to dinner, like TV dinner foods. And then now like really went down to like TV dinner foods, fast foods, frozen foods, all that. And I think that really changed from our behavioral view on how convenient the preservatives made our foods to even be so fast and ready in 10 minutes. Meanwhile, making a meal and doing all that can take around like 30 minutes to an hour, depending on what meal you make, of course, right? Like it all depends on the meal, but they make these fast foods and these preservatives that that cause issues. And like through this we do you do see more issues going on with the gut rather than when the foods were actually natural. And it goes beyond the gut too, like what we're talking about, like with spectrums, hormonal changes, mood changes, all that. Like preservatives, it came at a cost from convenience, like fast convenience, but we get all these bad sides downsides to it, versus natural foods, where it's like it's not as fast, it's not as convenient, but there's all these upsides to it. I find it very interesting. But I guess like what are your guys' thoughts? Like on the psychological side, like convenience with foods, how it went from all natural to basically all frozen and fast.
That's a very good question, Kevin. And just before I answer, I remember, like, if you know Kevin, guys, Kevin is the most energetic person ever. Like, Autumn, you can back me up, please.
Well, she stepped to the side really fast, but she should be back. Yeah.
No, but like Autumn can attest that Kevin is like full of energy. He never stopped. He's like that ever ready, energizer rabbit. Never stopped. Like his energy never stopped. And I remember seeing him in pain. I was like, "Yo, Kevin, are you okay?" And he was like, "Nah, something is not sitting well." And he went like that for a while, and then he went to the doctor, and he realized what it was. He had to change his diet. And to mind you, that Kevin is somebody that at that time he must have been like 20 years old. He was young and it will still affect him. And going on the aspect of the behavior, it's like, think about it. And I think we spoke about this on another podcast, us three. We talk about immediate gratification. Why do we want immediate gratification? Because it's easy, because it doesn't cost much. And unfortunately, for example, if we want to eat something organic, that means we need to farm, correct? We have to build, we need to construct. And to do that, it takes a lot of energy. And what are we more focused on today? Work, 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 study, time. I don't have time. And what do we want? A quick answer. So we rather risk our health. And I love what David was saying. We look to eat and not to have a good nutrition to our body, and to satisfy to have a satisfaction more in our brain than to really ingest nutrition into our body. There's a big difference. Think about this. Like, and I think a big responsible to this is poor parenthood. Because, for example, a parent that is young, and this happened on a lot of young people, couples, they see their kid crying. Instead of like saying, "Hey, I'm gonna fix you a meal that is nutritionist with vegetables, et cetera," they go to McDonald's for that Happy Meal because it has a toy. And they start to create the behavior that this is normal. This is what real food should look like. And it's not. And again, there is, I guess there's a lot of ignorance because, and it's not almost their fault, because if they ignore the nutritional facts about, you know, good foods and bad foods, or healthy foods, I'm sorry, they will be like, "Hey, you know something? Maybe I can eat this once a week or twice a month." And that should be the norm, because I'm pretty sure that it's the quantity also that's destructive. But from a psychological perspective, we always want immediate gratification. If we could avoid something hard, we would. But again, what is the reward you get at the end? If you want to work out, you have the option of, you know, eating healthy and going and working out, and you will lose weight, correct? But what do a lot of people choose? I'm going to do plastic surgery. And what happens with plastic surgery? It's painful. It's very painful. But then again, after you get that whole process, you still got to diet. You still got to diet. So what it's better? Do you form a natural good habit in yourself where you're going to lose weight, avoid the pain of surgery, but now you have a good habit, you get to your goal. It might take you a little longer, but that's exactly what happens. We choose the easy side of the road. There, like, I always say this in the Marines, they say everyone wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. I love that quote because it's true. Nobody likes, a lot of people, not everyone, a lot of people don't like the sacrifice behind a win. And it takes a lot of guts to eat nutritional all the time, and to keep your body, in sync. But it's a great point that you brought, Kevin. And like, for example, you have to change your diet, correct? How do you enjoy your nutrition journey?
Yeah, it's an interesting journey because I'm still like discovering. my diet. So I like a lot of salads. A lot of salads and greens are good. Chicken's great. Red meat I try to stay away from, even though I still eat a lot of red meat. Even though not a lot, but I still eat red meat. Like I love my burgers, you know, and I love my empanadas. Like those are the best. So
Yeah.
yeah, right. And then one of the things I do as well is like I fast sometimes too, because then sometimes within the fast, like I sometimes I get like energy, like it's like a little bit more energy burst, and then and it makes me feel like clean in the stomach sometimes, like you know, like sometimes you could feel like when you have a lot like in the body, and it just needs to just go through, and like you feel like a little light, or I feel light within my fast sometimes. But after that, it's really like eating fresh foods, and to the media gratification point, sometimes I fall down short where I'm like, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, and then I forget about the nutrition. I'm like, oh no, I can't do that. So fruits have really been one of my things. Oranges, mangoes, apples.
Kiwi.
Yeah, kiwi. Yeah, those are the best ones too. Yeah, so I've been having a lot of those, and ever since like my stomach problems, it's been like a change. Like it's not there's not like tight knots. Um, so basically, what I had was I had ulcerative ulcerative colitis and ulcerative proctitis, and I had proctitis, and it's inflammation. There's inflammation all over the intestine. Um, so really eating all the natural foods was the solution, and the reason for me to go on the diet change is because like my doctor didn't really tell me about like the diets. Like they just wanted me to take like they just wanted me to take pills. But it wasn't like the ones you swallow. And I was like, I don't want to, I was like, I'm not gonna take those. I'm not gonna take those pills. Those if you know picking up what I'm putting down.
Kevin, when autumn is around, I actually have a good question for David. That one day, me and Autumn, we were talking about something in particular. So let me know when she comes back. David, I have a question for you. Are we talking about preservatives? Apparently, the aid is like a preservative for the intestine, not the digestive system, and also for the brain. I ask you, since you have chemical knowledge, what happens when in the chemical part when you fast?
That's a great question. You hit the mark straight on. Thanks so much.
We never give you a break, David, do we?
Look, no, and it's cool. Look, cells don't stop, do they? And they are always wanting energy, and these cells are going to need a source of energy or take. Because let's see, the first source that let's say they take the cells, it's the carbohydrates, then the carbohydrates are finished, and you go to the next one, which is proteins, fats, where you have to take the source to produce it in the energy that the cell needs, which is ATPB. Then it generates as you no longer have food that you ingested for a long time, that is, during your fast. Cells must generate energy because the body doesn't stop. Even the breathing process generates an energy load that needs replenishing. So the cell enters a state called ketosis, using what's in your body to produce energy. Essentially, it's like this. If you don't have carbohydrates, you're taking it from your body. The body can be either muscle or fat, and it consumes what the cell has and will never stop. So, what you do is it's going to consume all the carbohydrates you ate in excess. Let's put it this way. And when you eat again, the process is reversed. and it is no longer accepted if they say that with a hedge, if they even lose weight, and it is true.
You in the mental field, right? What happens a lot is like you create resilience. Believe it or not, even the cells create resilience when you go on my God, I forgot the word. Uh,
Journey.
when you go fasting, your cells needs resilience, because what happens is the cell also, it's almost like you teach them how to struggle, and they become more resilient. So does the brain when you actually go on a fasting. You need that kind of resilience for your brain, because I was reading an interesting a paper from this doctor that was talking about how even the cells get to rejuvenate when they struggle, when they start going on these fastings. Why? Because you're teaching them how to be resilient. And it's interesting. I'm not an expert, I'm not a geneticist, so I can't tell you that I know, but I was reading and I found it interesting because that's exactly what it does in your brain. It creates resilience.
Of course, because the cell has to look for new sources. Then you have to make do with it. Then you have to look. So your body has to come out of, say, lethargy where it is. Or K, at such a time food will come, and from there I limp and generate my energy. But when you don't have a source, it has to be resilient then. Your whole organism has to turn on and look for the sources from where? So, yes, I believe that it generates that, putting it as if the cell has human behavior. You have to say, hey, you have to look for the sources that we need, and you have to look to see what in that, where can I take abdomen from? That's why you lower abdomen. Of course, this is the biggest source. This is why Kevin demonstrates significant resilience.
You see, Kevin? It's all the fasting you do, brother. That's why you're so resilient.
Yeah, hey, it's for all that. 100%. That's what keeps me focused, because I'm always looking for the next, for
Well,
the
that,
next
that
energy.
that's exactly what resilience do. It makes you alert to what you really need and how you need to adapt for those needs. So this is why it's so important that we understand that the process of adaptability. The process of adaptability has to reach an evolution point. But the last point to reach evolution is determination. Because you can do all the process, but if you can't hit the determination point to evolve, you get stuck. And this is why resilience is so important. And it's probably the most painful process of evolution, because that means you are persisting against the odds, you're persisting against the pain, and you're learning, you're processing deep learning in your brain to understand that there are other ways, and that other way is a new skill set you don't have. But again, because you don't have it, it becomes unknown, and because it becomes unknown, you could develop fear for it, right? And you don't want to be part of it, because you want to fall back into your comfort zone. So it's very interesting when you reach, and you go through adaptation, you go through learning the basics, and then when you reach to determination is where a lot of people get stuck, because they're not resilient enough to understand, like, okay, I need to push through all this pain, all this suffering, all of this that I fear, to get to the evolution. And once you evolve, that's when you acquire the new skill set, and that's when you acquire the new knowledge. And then if you repeat the cycle again and again and again and again, this is how you acquire wisdom, because now you become a practical person to transform knowledge into experience, because you're practicing. It's almost like a lab work. The best lab work people are the ones that experiment the most. There's a difference between an expert in lab and a novice. You can tell the difference just by how they behave in the lab. You can tell, like, wow, this person is moving and he knows what he's doing, compared to the novice that is like asking questions, being skeptical if these are the right steps, is very similar to that.
Yeah, Yeah, very much. It's so interesting too how that could even like come from like those little steps could even start from fasting. Like even if it's just like a little like fast for somebody that hasn't done it, like maybe test it out to build up your resilience. It could change your
Yeah.
body, change the brain, and it could start a trend new habits of certain ways. Push beyond the glass to like ceilings and go through determination. And that could be like even a fast from all the sugar foods, and
Mm.
going right into the healthy foods. Because
Yeah. David, a question. What do you consider dangerous preservatives?
Let's see. There are some that are already being studied and are being replaced by other types of preservatives that are a little less, more harmful. Maybe every foreign product from our body is going to generate some discomfort, not for all of us, but for a certain person. The group of people, let's put it this way, because as I tell you, there are products that cannot cause any problems for me, but they can cause another person. As I told you, there are products that are antioxidants, but they are often used in the area of fats that are already considered hepatotoxic. I mean, starting from the fact that it is the hepatotoxic being that is going to cause damage to your liver. So maybe that same component won't cause damage to my liver, but it will cause damage to someone else. So I think they continue to be used because the people affected are very few, or they do not indicate quick and permanent damage, which is why they do not leave food completely. These that I saw a study says of BHA and BHT are antioxidants, for example, the same preservative that they often put in balanced foods to feed animals. We still carry this in the body. It is also put in the planning part, as I already told you. It says it can cause headaches, migraines, irritability, sleep problems, inattention. So a single product can cause you all these evils, let's put it this way. But many times we are not aware that this is happening to me because I eat this product or because I surely ingest a small amount. Perhaps the one who presents much more problems is the person who has a predisposition for this product to cause harm, or because of the amount of food with this preservative that he ingests much more than I do, for example. So that causes your body to react differently for these cases. When we suffer from diseases, for example, as Kevin suggests, I would suggest when you have this type of problem after eating food, it is like keeping a diary of what you ate on this day to look for possible culprits. Because many times we ingest many things, but if we keep a diary of what we ingest to know what is causing me irritation, for example, because that's how it goes, you go and you can read what components it has. Perhaps one of these components is what generates irritation or this behavior, in this case, headache. Many times we think it's the stress of our own day, and it may be the food that we have ingested that has this preservative or this chemical that generates that reaction in my body.
No, no. A question, David, because we talk about these chemicals. It stays in our bodies, or logically, we also sweat it or defecate it. No, or we urinate it. But this brings me agreement like Charles Darwin, doesn't it? Survives the most, the strongest exactly. And as if by doing this, we are doing almost the same thing. Not putting it is because what we are talking about is that it does not affect everything, but it is going to affect, for example, as it affected A to Kevin. No, I mean that I'm going to. I mean, no, we're not. We are dismissing those who are most vulnerable. Imagine if Kevin hadn't changed his diet or didn't have that resilience to do it.
I would be visiting the doctor a lot more. I would be spending a lot more on medicine. And the only thing that is to put a patch on his problem, that he, by changing his food intake to much more organic foods, prepared his own food much more. He's generating that change and he's avoiding these types of products, right?
Kevin, what do you think? Because I think of you, brother. You know, I think about like what you went through and your experience, and it's like it's almost like a natural selection. Like Charles Darwin was like, you know, natural selection. He's talking about this. You know, whoever the fittest survives, and like for example, in your case, you're probably one of the most fit person, but you are just vulnerable to the chemicals in your food. Like, how do you view this?
Yeah, definitely. If when reflecting back on like my past histories and how I used to eat, Wendy's used to be my number one, my favorite spot to go because then I used to. So I would go to school in Manhattan and then go and live in Staten Island, and after practice, I would everything would be closed. So I'll have school and practice would probably be from 7:30 to 10 o'clock at night, and then all the restaurants are closed, and my allowance for the week is probably only like $20 for the week. So like how much money, like $20 for the week to get lunch or food for the time being, and after practice all hungry. It's like gotta decide before or after. And then so what I'll do is there used to be a Wendy's by the ferry, and I'll always eat that, or I'll always get French fries, or I'll get bacon and cream cheese. So that was my diet like in high school, and when I really started to feel the effects is when I started to work a little longer. So it was like a buildup of just bad chemicals just being put in my body, and without having my body relax down into it. And it started like with little problems, and then the problems got a little bigger, and then the problems got like really bad, where I had to be hospitalized and um yeah, they just really had to like do a whole bunch of scans in my body. Had to do a whole bunch of things like that. Uh, so like it was a buildup of chemicals that started. Like the entropy process started before the disasters happened, and it was just slowly going on. And now I'm rebuilding my body. I did a lot of research where it's like the medicines, like that's what the medicines are there just to patch it, and that's what they are. Like they're there to patch it like a band-aid, but they're not there to solve the root of the problem. They're not there to cause the blood to clot. Like they're just there just to patch the band-aid. Um, so on my own research, I used to just search up foods as medicine, because that's what it used to be. I had to figure out ways to keep my stomach and my body in good shape, because then if this wasn't in good shape, I couldn't function right. And if I can't function right, then I can't skateboard, obviously. So
The love of food boy save you, bro. Look, if Autumn is around, I have a question that I know Autumn's gonna love.
yeah, she's
Uh,
almost here.
All right, so I'll ask when she comes back. David, I'm asking you a question because it tells you Kevin is talking specifically about preservatives in fast food chains like Wendy's, McDonald's. What is it? What kind of preservatives did we find in there?
Well, first I'm going to bring the phrase of a person who told me there are cheeses that don't even know the cow. Because I already bring this up because there are some where they catch a fat.
And
Sorry about the dye.
Yeah, right. Imagine the cheeses that burn instead of melt. Like those that turn black instead of actually like melting down.
David, kill me, bro. he said, there's cheese that never met the cow. He got me crying right now, man.
Yeah, right.
That's good, sister.
And what's the point of not coming from? We know that cheeses come from milk, but these cheeses do not come from milk, but rather they take fat, flavor, color, a little whip, and it goes to your body. They go and put hangers. That is, they don't come from dairy derivatives. So what they put is certain flavors, colorings, fat, and something to say that comes from the cow. It may be a serum, but that's why this friend calls it, he told him, they are cheeses that do not know the cow. An example, a cheddar, for example, a cheddar. Many times it is that, and there are many who have those characteristics. So you have to see, and you can't see the label of how this cheese comes from. For example, no longer the same species. The sauces they put on you can often come from another type of origin that have a preservative that can skip the same ground meat. I think these fast food chains had a lot of trouble with the meat part. So they can use you from soybeans that can they give you soy protein? That many people are intelligent about soy, and that can cause you problems without you knowing. You just eat and say, the hamburger is heavy on me. Don't you know if you have soy? And are you allergic or intolerant to soy? Those are in the same part of frying. This oil, as I tell you, some may contain these antioxidants that can be hepatotoxic. For example, in large quantities, we do not know what they are like either. So, all this accumulation of product, things that go beyond the fact that this is a fast food that has no nutritional value, it's just calories and you don't have adequate nutritional value for us, is going to generate a problem of unprofitability.
David and the sodas.
Apart from sodas.
The chemist preserves it. That is my ignorance, not because it is something mass production or.
Well, they also have their reserves, starting with the same carbon dioxide that the carbonated gas uses, helps you preserve a little. It has a percentage of phosphoric acid. It's what gives you the feeling when you drink a soda like it's cleaned your teeth.
No, I don't know if it's a fact of it. Yeah. Sure. It has a sense of.
Like your teeth feel clean and you can drink soda. Well, it has a high percentage of phosphoric acid, for example, and it degenerates that feeling of something that you don't know if it may be allergic to. This acid type or that acidity can cause irritability, of course. And of course, sodas have their preservatives.
Sure. In Kevin, I don't know if you want to add something to that question.
Yeah. So I didn't know that you can even be allergic to the phosphoric acid and that like that's also used in the mouth cleaning products. Like I wonder like how many other things are used in our products that aren't necessarily good. Like I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I heard I I heard right. I heard that wood chipping pieces are used to preserve the cheese shavings, like grated, not grated cheese, but the cheese strings that are in the bags. So then the cheese doesn't stick together when it starts when it starts getting hot. Like what is that preservative even used in that cheese so it doesn't even stick together? Like I heard it was like wood. I don't believe it was wood shaving chippings, but like just I just heard about it. So I guess my question is, what are those preservatives in that cheese bag for the string cheese?
Let's see. What happens is that those are different varieties of cheeses. And I don't know what that particular type of cheese is like.
Yeah, because it doesn't stick together when it melts. Like they have to put something in between it, like and they had to like shake it up in something so then those individual pieces aren't like sticky.
Glued together, yeah. Because it imitates. It's almost like a crab imitation, you know, but this is cheese imitation. But like we're saying, it's an imitation, but it's just like it's almost like you're eating, I don't know, could it be less like you're eating plastic? Almost like oh
Yeah,
rubber?
yeah, right. Like we're eating plastic or rubber. It's like at a certain point, it's like it doesn't become. It's not even real food anymore. It's just another type of energy from a chemical. Even then, they're trying to create fake meat. Like, how do you even create fake meat? Like, you just take a protein and then you 3D print it. Did you ever hear about 3D printed meat?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I heard about that.
You know,
That's kind of scary too, though.
Right,
you know,
totally to another level.
look, I don't know what type of cheese it will be, but maybe the preservatives, let's say the most used benzoates, sorbates, sorbic acid, which are also the most used in dairy products and something. I talked about sorbate, which has irritability. It seems like an intestine to me. I don't know what has everything good. The preservative or preservative is taken according to product, and if you are going to use temperature or not, yes, how much, what do you want, what do you want to cover that food of fungi, yeast, bacteria. I couldn't tell you about that product, but as I tell you, the modifications that are made to the products for our demands as consumers, in quotes, demand, because what they do is vary and modify the consistency of a known food, in this case, weight. So to give it that consistency that you are talking about, you surely have to use a product that generates that property. Let's put it this way. If it looks like a scratch, it seems to me that I heard. Now then, it has not only a preservative, but a product that will generate that property or that quality of that product that I don't know. So I couldn't tell you, but there you are adding to a cheese that comes from milk from which the rennet was produced, the whey compression, and you already have a cheese. You have another variety that you have to modify. And many times it does not start from milk or cheese, but from a dairy derivative plus another product that generates that property or that consistency that you want. So, as I say, you already move away from the cow in this case, and so on and so on. And so there are many products, for example, potatoes, that do not come from potatoes, but from a process of flour, starch, or you eat it like potatoes. And it doesn't come from the potatoes as such.
Sure, David. And what happens, for example, when before it happens, when they're harvesting it, they spray chemicals? Can this also be considered preservatives?
No, that is more clearly to protect the food sector. Because let's see, when the harvest arrives, you can spray to prevent insects from also coming to treat them and bringing pollution. Of course, because as I told you from the beginning, from the moment he is in the tree protects him. in the sense that it is not going to rot. Of course, it is going to rot because each fruit has a cycle
Life.
of life. Let's put it this way: it is like pregnancy. After 9 months, has to come out of the product. It can come out sooner or not. On the other hand, the fruit too, there is already a moment where it can no longer continue in the tree and falls on its own, but we can harvest it sooner, okay? But the moment I remove it from the tree, it is no longer part of the tree. On my part, then let's say that the stage begins where it is going to rot at the moment you harvest. Time is already beginning to mark the tick-tock that this animal, that animal, or this, in this case, this vegetable fruit, can already begin to decompose the minister of harvest.
David and the canned goods. Why do they last so long?
Because first you have to come from the tin itself. We know that it is said that it is an invention or something that they made for the military. That's right. Okay, that's where canned food comes from. What's the matter? This food, on the other hand, has to lead to a process such as sterilization. So you in the can have to bring it to a cooking temperature where all the food reaches the temperature you need so that bacteria or pathogens do not grow. When this is not the case, we do not have good temperature transmission. A bacteria is created that grows in these cans, and that shows many people that it is the elotulista. But why is it preserved more? Because the packaging where that food goes is more airtight. It does not pass the barrier like in a sleeve, that this sleeve does not allow the passage of certain gases, for example, or air. And this is what harms this food. So everything will also depend on the packaging where the food goes. For this, we also have to make designs for the packaging that will contain the food, because many of these cannot need, for example, a gas or water barrier, and the packaging does not give it to you, this food will be able to go. In this case, the can is airtight, nothing happens. That is, the moment you close it, you already cause the effect of the temperature you want. And this is inviolable. What can cause in the cans is that due to the blows, there is a separation of one of the joints and there may be contamination there. That's why sometimes beaten canned foods sell you cheaper so that you.
You mean, Kevin, you have any question with that? That's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah. One of my questions that I have is, so you know how people are trying to preserve the foods, create the foods, and make it better. So I'm wondering if we'll ever reach somewhere in the future where the food itself is something that can be pushed aside, and then next thing you know, you have like a supplement that gives you all the energy you need for your body. Because after all, like food is a chemical process that goes on in your body anyways. It might be a very the food in it might just, like, the molecules in the food might be more diversified than the pill itself. But imagine now with like AI, like components, math, like you could do the math on it faster than ever before, and they start creating like a pill, or they create like like a granola bar that gives you all your nutrition for the day. Like, do you think we'll ever reach that point in the future? And if we do reach that point in the future, is it is it scary? Is it scary in your opinion? To me, it's kind of scary because then it's like, whoa, we're not gods. God gave us this natural, beautiful food to eat, but now we're just eating a granola bar instead of egg and cheese in the morning.
Look, let's see. I believe that, like everything in this world, nothing stops every time. We as consumers are the ones who set the challenges for all these companies to generate much healthier food. I believe that in the future we will be able to have a little healthier food, or we will have to choose as always. And the decision is going to be ours. Yes, healthy foods are made such as granola, such as dry grains that you have at your disposal, or that tell you that, for example, quinoa is a food with a high percentage of protein. For example, that not only people are no longer in soy, but use lentils to add them to your diet. Chickpeas are already foods. They are rich in protein, minerals, and what you need is both oligo foods and plant micronutrients. Everyone needs to be made a little aware. I'm not saying that junk food or food that has preservatives and preservatives is bad and I eat it. Of course, but reducing consumption, preparing our own food would be the best and most ideal, which is why there are high rates of diseases free of charge due to poor diet. And it is something that we are seeing in terms of the products we use within the meals. If there is a change where a little more is being studied and foods in quotation marks are being generated, much healthier or let's say less problematic for our body, for our health. That's why many of these preservatives have been coming out and they want to use other molecules. But the drawback is that the times of these foods are also going to be much shorter. Everything is business, money.
I got a good one. I'm going to take you into dark waters, David.
Yeah.
No sé si, I don't know if Kevin, you were aware of this. This happened uh, like almost like a decade ago, around 2008. Um, and there was this company called DuPont, which is considered the largest contamination. He said, and it has to do with product that is not a preservative, but it's it was a chemical used on what and how we cook, where we cook, as a matter of fact. And they were using this. And as a matter of fact, they said that we have this chemical in our bodies. Like 99% of human beings have this chemical in their body because everyone cooked with that kind of chemical that they put in order to cook. Gabi wanted to ask you that, and I know that it doesn't have to be knowing anything to do with preservatives, but it has to do, for example, with not only how food affects us, not like the manipulation of hormones, because grow food in the same way so that things last longer. All of that is not manipulated, but there is also manipulation outside the food, which has to do, for example, with the pans, with the pots that we cook. And this chain, DuPont was the largest producer of this technology that was used to keep things from sticking to a frying pan.
Teflon.
Teflon, exactly us. And excuse me, I know it's good for me. I trust you, your knowledge, so much that I'm taking you into these dark waters. There's even a movie called Dark Waters. Do I recommend them? It is specifically about this and all the diseases it produced, especially in that surrounding town. But like all of us, 99% of people have this chemical equipment in our bodies, which is interesting. You could take us in these murky waters. David.
Yes. Unfortunately, we have used many things throughout history that we believed were safe and that were very new, including Teflon, which was brought to kitchen utensils because it had that property that food did not stick while you were cooking it. Okay, but no one saw the transmission that was through DE because of the heat, whether this was going to stick to our food or was going.
A
Releasing any substance never occurred. It's like saying, okay, I have this and let's move on. Let's see what problems they might have. Maybe there are a lot of plastics. I don't know if you have heard of polyphenols. It seems to me that they also come from certain plastics, and that at the time we used them without knowing, and we heated them in the microwave, and we all ate, and then they told us, hey, no, those plastics contaminate this product, which is carcinogenic.
yes, it is what is used to heat room noodles practically.
Yes, and that it maintained and preserved the plastic, and it is hard. But when you heated, you secreted this substance, and we contaminated the food with this, and we contaminated ourselves with that. And there is accumulation in our body. Perhaps this also causes our body to change, or has changed base A. The practice of using this Teflon is not bad because it must have shed something. We are talking about that this generated a product that did us a lot of damage, which has already been proven. That's why Teflon doesn't find it anymore.
Even the most alarming, what alarms me the most is the fact that the DuPont company knew, did studies, understood the damage, and because it's such a lucrative business, and they had government, U.S. government contracts, they had contracts with so many. It was worldwide, so they definitely prioritize the business over the human life, and you can see how the greed of business has such a big effect, not only on the preservatives, not only on how we cook and how we live, but the most dangerous thing is having executives that know the danger, that have done the science behind it, and they still proceed to do damage and not prevent it. And that is what's more scary than even creating these chemicals that enhance our the limitation of food, or preserve how we conserve food, and et cetera, et cetera. I do think, like, you can invent something as a chemist, you can invent something, but what's more dangerous is the intention, the human intention behind, on how they want to manipulate it, how they want to abuse it. Because I think that's the issue. The issue is not so much as, are you going to use it? The question is, when you use it, are you going to abuse it? Are you going to modify it to abuse the system? What are you going to do with that invention? Are you going to be somebody fair? Are you going to make sure that it's safe? Are you doing the proper studies for it? That's what sometimes scares me, especially with the DuPont company. They knew the dangers. They knew it very well, and only one person stand up. I encourage Kevin. I encourage you to watch that movie. You will be like, "What the hell?" And this didn't happen in a third world country. That happened here in the U.S.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah, I can see that happening in the U.S. too, because like corporations sometimes here are shady and sly. They'll keep the information limited. Even now, like even some corporations try to keep the information limited, and that's why there's certain legal acts going out to give us those labels on the food, because it's like, hey, you can't hide what you're doing to the consumer anymore. Like the consumer needs to know what what they're intaking. And it's only fair and it's only right because it's their bodies that the that those corporations are messing with. We become like their test subjects. DuPont was basically testing us and seeing the long term effects of what happens. You see that also with the cigarette companies as well. Marlboro, like we were talking about that from the beginning of the episode, how they had that little bit, and then it's like they pushed it, they pushed it so far where now we really see the effects of long term use of it. So I think even now there's probably still studies that go on that have like the red dye. Now we're seeing the long term effects of red dye, and now they're starting to ban it in certain products because it's not only it could be entropying in somebody's body at this moment, right? But they're just not feeling it yet, and they might feel it with the overconsumption of it, and that's one of the scary parts about it, um, because if it's a bad chemical, it's a bad chemical, like yeah, our bodies react differently, but long term, like like alcohol affects everybody differently, but we all know overconsumption of alcohol gives you a beer belly.
To draw some ground. What is happening here? That perhaps because we are a small country, the legislation does not help much. Let's put it this way: alcoholic beverages with methyl alcohol have been found? Yes. That is very harmful to the liver and can leave you blind. And exactly what they banned many years ago. Maybe there are still drinks to this day that contain methyl when it has already been seen that it cannot. Why? Because you want to generate an alcoholic beverage that has that wooden flavor. What does it give to be in a barrel? And then if you can't do it, you try and find what product you can do it with. In this case, the methyl. And they have found themselves today already when they know, and a very regrettable case has already happened here, that many people were blinded by the adulteration of an alcoholic beverage, and it's still there. I mean, everything will depend on the ethics of the companies. Another event. What happened now? Last, lead contamination in food and heavy metals, in food and not in processed food, in cinnamon powder. Heavy metal contamination, I think it was cadmium. It was found because I think they wanted to generate a color for that product because they had done so. It was because they wanted to adulterate cinnamon powder to reduce cost. Then they took sawdust from any wood and pigmented it. And this pigment had a heavy metal, and they sold the product, and they saw each other, and they sold that product. And not only was their cinnamon contaminated with lead and this heavy metal, but products that were made with this cinnamon.
Yeah, that's like a human behavior thing. That's like inflation in a sense, like what they did with the gold coins. Started stripping the gold coins. Instead, they start adding wood chips.
That's crazy.
Amazing, look, and that was just over a year ago, not approximately in 1 year. Even then, everything will depend on the conscience of the individual who directs that company.
How often do we have good inspectors that don't get bribed? We have inspectors that understand that there's thousand millions of people's lives dependent on their good judgment and their willingness to do the right thing. Because the ethics, like you said, absolutely the owner of these places, the leaders in these places, but also the governments also having that ethical approach to understand that there's a lot of lives in danger. And it to me is so alarming that these things are not taken as an attempted murder like genocide. I don't know what you guys think about that. I don't know if you want to go first, Kevin or David, because well, the way I see it, when you are conscious that you put in wood chip and then you're putting a heavy metal on a product of mass consumption, and to me, that's almost like you want to commit genocide. Like you're becoming Hitler. You have a narcissist behavior if you do that. A psychopathic narcissist behavior because you understand the bad that you're going to do and you still do it for your own benefit. I want to hear you guys what you do. You guys think that could be considered like genocide?
Definitely, like you're killing a nation slowly. It's like poisoning the water, but like having it like a slow drip, you know, because then the like they could say like the full blame doesn't go on the corporation because a whole bunch of other things could happen in between, but that's a factor that contributes to it. Like lead on baby products in a sense, like even things like that still go on, even knowing that it's bad. Like those things could even like kill babies and like the wood chips, they know it's bad. It is a narcissistic psychopathic behavior because you know it's gonna hurt many people, but you decide to still proceed with it, do it anyway, sell the product, and make sure it's wiped off the shelf in everybody's homes. Like I think food markets, they know the amount of energy they provide to a society, and they know how many people get impact. You know, it's like a business. You got to know how many people are going to come through. It is a business. You got to know how many people are going to come through your doors in order to anticipate the need. So if you already have a whole bunch of people coming through your doors and you're anticipating the needs of those people, you're going to provide. It's like providing them with a bad product. It's killing them and intentionally killing them. It's not even like a accident. It's like, no, we just put it in there so we could make our yields longer.
Mm, that's crazy, man. What do you think, David?
No, it does have to see people that many times it is made or you don't know. Because if it comes contaminated as a raw material, but if you don't do the control more or less to explain to them what about cinnamon, how it was known here was because a company exported baby porridge to the United States back then. The children started having stomach problems, and obviously, as I tell you, since it was a porridge, it was something that the children were just trying, that there weren't many foods that you had given them that the children had eaten during the day. Like us, we eat a lot of things during the day. On the other hand, not a child. You take care and regulate the food. Instead, these mothers, the only thing this child had eaten was that porridge. So they began to do the tracing, they did the analysis, and in the porridge, it was contaminated. The claim comes here, and here they begin to have raw material by raw material, which was what they had put, and they did the analysis of each of these components. And it had been cinnamon. There it came. And where else had they made this cinnamon? What else had they done? It had been sold to the public. So people here stopped consuming cinnamon, a good time powder, because of that. But what I'm getting at is that the company didn't know, but it didn't do its control well. Whoever sold it was the bad guy because he knew what he'd done. I mean, he was aware that he was doing wrong.
Sure, and the product and the modifications they made. I'm curious, David, and logically, I don't know much about this. That's why I ask you when a drug like cocaine is created, such as marijuana, preservatives are used for this so that it is not damaged.
No. Let's see. No, because these products, let's see, first, these products are a high turnover product. First, there.
He's funny. He said like it gets sold so quick, like it doesn't need preservative.
Second, those who manufacture these types of drugs are not the most ethical in the world because they are already giving you poison. So they don't mind if you leave. They already know you're going to end your life. No, 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 nothing to do with it. What's more, there's a report. How do they make this cocaine hydrochloride? And start it with gasoline. For the extraction of the crush on the leaf, here with gasoline, they use strong acids. So why do they understand that they use lime and then they are already products in themselves?
I can't hear you, Kev.
Oh, I remember I saw a video of that and in the barrels and all. Like they had to put the leaf in the barrel, put the gasoline in there, let it ferment, let it extract in it, and then dry it. And it's like the process is just all like chemical badness. But even on the more naturalistic side, even on marijuana's front, like they don't need to really preserve it because they push it out so fast, but at the same time, they made the flour so much stronger than what it used to be in the
Mm.
90s, 80s, 70s. Like that flour now is just it's more potent than in history. Like now they're doing a more chemical process, extracting strains, mixing strains together, like the gardening process is so
That's a good point, Kevin. But should we consider that gardening, or should we consider that a chemical gardening, like a chemical lab? What do you think, David? Because that's very interesting what Kevin says. In other words, before marijuana was organic and you smoked it together, but now there are chemical components so that it has a different flavor, smell, and extinction. What do you think about that, David?
Look, natural things are always good. If you don't add anything, that's good. But when you start adding, for example, a smell or a taste, you are bringing a product that you don't know how it is going to behave. Yes, something can hurt you. I sent you a study that said that alcohols that have the former flavor preservatives will lead to legislation as possible carcinogens because these products, when ingested in large or small quantities, anything can generate cancer
Yes.
or that they can cause cancer. So by adding something natural, in this case marijuana or whatever with other products, this is what is going to hurt you. That 100% natural, I don't defend myself and I haven't tried and I wouldn't know how to tell you,
Certainly, but there is clarity in this.
right? When adding. Other products such as Cervantes, flavor, or color itself, because you are already modifying this. You are putting a product that could bring humidity because you are putting certain lithium that you don't know what could happen to it. It is generating a different product, and this can already hurt you.
That's why, for example, Many people here who smoke marijuana see that they don't have any who do it recreationally or do it because of their psychological or medical conditions. You see that they don't have inappropriate behavior, and they are people who live quietly. It doesn't bother anyone. But if you see the difference when, for example, they ingest something that has chemicals in them, for example, no, I don't know if you are aware, but like in the US, they vape a lot. Los vaporizadores, and those
Yes.
vapes are just chemicals, oils, chemical oils, and there's not even a complete study to understand the dangers of this.
Furthermore, they claim they are more harmful than regular cigarettes in two specific scenarios. Is it more socially acceptable for smoke to have a tropical cherry scent, cherry, banana? I don't understand why it doesn't get worse. Not just so we can talk bananas. If it smells pleasant, I'm going to use it. I'm in themselves, it is these oils or these products that can generate other types of byproducts and that can cause damage to you, apart from the fact that they also have components very similar to those of cigarettes, which also generate an addiction, and that you consume it much more because it is socially more acceptable. And another reason for which you should not trust is because the same tobacco companies created the cigarette problem. They created the bar solution. That is, you put the devil to decide what is bad.
And that's so interesting because you hear like what he's saying. You let the devil decide what's good and bad, and you already know with the devil there is no good at all. So it's interesting that we go into this to study this and see that we let the powerhouses, the corporate powerhouse of cigarettes decide that vape is good and transition into that. It's not, I don't think it's as lucrative as it was once the cigarette industry, but it definitely transitioned. But I do think there's more awareness, I believe, when it comes to these chemicals into your body. But it's sad to see like how easily we trust these companies without even questioning. And one of the things that me, Kevin, and you and David talk about is like question everything. Question everything out of goodwill, not at like you're trying to just be a jerk, but question things from a very educational perspective. Why this? Why that? I just want to ask you guys so we can finish this. Actually, this is a question for my homegirl A Bomb Autumn.
I hear you.
No, no, that's fine. No, no, but I would love for her to hear this because Autumn was talking about. David is now telling me about, for example, she had a lot of inflammation problems and she discovered a food in kiwi, but it not only reduces inflammation but also makes her feel very energetic. What does kiwi have that can be so good for?
Our health kiwi as such seems to me to have a quantity. The large of vitamin C, it seems to me to be a high amount of vitamin C, which in itself is an antioxidant. So you're kind of hooked. I don't know what kiwi is all about, but it seems to me that it's a great source of vitamin C than I remember.
And do you think that vitamin C is what you say being an antioxidant? What effect does that have? I imagine it has an anti inflammatory effect.
No, it can be anti-inflammatory, but it also helps you ensure certain or good behavior of your body. Apart from being a vitamin, There are people who do multivitamin therapy with vitamin C, which leaves you very active in the process. Let's see. I think I saw it. Vitamin C is high in vitamin C, antioxidant Y. It's just, hey, we have to come up with 50 tracks per.
No, no, yeah. I was curious about this because I remember with Kevin, we were talking and she brought this. And well, I remember I once told Kevin to try a kiwi. I think it was the first time he tried kiwi and he loved heaven. And then now she was telling me that, for example, she had this problem that she felt very inflamed. Suddenly he discovered the kiwi. The kiwi kind of worked a miracle in his body, and which we gave him energy too.
Of course, here it helps brain and immune system development, very complete pressure regulation. Oh, it's anti-inflammatory. Here it is.
So this?
It's inflammatory.
So this is a food that you would recommend as a chemist?
I prefer natural remedies at night, not many medicines.
Me neither. I'm also in favor of natural remedies. I want to know more.
Me more, because to see our body is skilled. We must respect the wisdom of our body. So when we feel bad, you get angry when you feel tired when you're coughing, when you have a fever. They are protection mechanisms of our body to say something is wrong. Then you have to let your body develop as well.
Hong.
Block it with medication quickly, because the simplest thing was, in Kevin's case, to take medication. Well, no, he went more for food. The root cause of the problem, that is, we must let our body experience and generate all these alerts between these headaches, muscle aches, all that alert us, is that something is not right about paying attention to our body, and that it itself is going to help us generate, let's say, the body's own well-being. You don't have to know how to listen to it, and for that, the healthiest thing is to upload the product as naturally as possible.
Of course, I wanted to conclude with the program, but I would like it because it was really a request from now. Why I think it would be very good, because in very little men talk about women's health. Very few, I think, that we are a little know that we are insensitive, but we never wonder what she will feel, what may go through her head, what sensations, how they handle it. The simple fact of having a menstrual phase has to be something, even at the beginning, traumatic. From a psychological point of view, too, don't imagine from a hormonal and chemical point of view. So I really wish that in the other week, I know we're going to talk about preservatives on the skin, but no.
No, don't worry. We can divert the topic, but we do stop to review this topic. But I see that we have to study 10, 20 topics out.
Excuse me, everything here.
Calm down, better. This is like when the magician starts to take out the cards in the U, that you see that 10 come out and they continue to come out. No, and that's fine. For that, no.
I would like for the week this God allows it. Next Monday or Tuesday, we can talk about birth pills, birth control pills, with crowds that in Spanish they would be contraceptive pills, the chemical effect on a woman's body. And you, I mean, with Kevin, I would also love Kevin to encourage his questions, because Kevin, you are with Autumn, and you can probably see a lot of like her friends, and you can see like how she behaves compared to others that take it, and how sometimes this produces mood swings, it produces so many secondary effects that I believe that our women deserve that we guys, we the big boys, talk about their health, and I think we owe it to them because they're amazing with us too. And we happen to love women too.
Look, I will only ask for one thing. This, like the one in the topic, you have to, as they say, go find. That is, speak with appropriate properties, have basic questions, because it is a very complex topic, and it is a topic that you have to be very precise. What am I?
Very.
Okay, then, when trying to why we have done here, and we do it like a round table where we all contribute ideas, we all generate good leads or good comments, good questions, good opinions. But on the other hand, this is already a topic. That needs to be addressed with seriousness, with data, with greater precision. Then, yes, with some basic questions, and from there, start and develop the rest of the topic. Because if it is one that is complex, and it is another that you have to be much more precise in many terms.
We have to be more scientific in the approach we have. And the good thing that I would like that, for example, the advantage we have is that now he knows the difference between one and the other. And she can tell us about her own experience. Like her, did these changes occur? What did you feel when you didn't have these chemicals or these pills in your body? It's going to seem like I don't know what. And what would you like to like because we it's true what David is saying. We need to be a little bit more scientific, but like what will you how should we own this? Like I like the chemical part, that's for David. David I think is the expert in chemistry, so we'll leave like the effects on the women body when it comes to birth control pills. I could talk about the mental health problems that come with the pills. What would you like to investigate so we can all three be well rounded about?
Yeah, yeah. So I think we should do in structures like what is the chemical itself? So then that's the what is that process? How it behaves, so the behavioral behind it. So that'll be W, and then for me, I would like to explore the fertility rates with it. Like, what does it do long term? How does it affect that? And then for Autumn, I think she'll like to. I don't know which side she'll like to explore, but I think she'll like to probably explore that. I think she has like an all-encompassing side. She'll probably do like all three. She'll probably meet all three of us at a certain level with it.
Yeah, maybe she can be that component that puts all the strings together what we're talking because she has the experience that we would never have.
Yeah, she could talk about from like how doctors push down the because like doctors aren't asking us to take birth control,
Like,
they just ask us the cost. So, but yeah, man, right? So we're not gonna ask that. So she could probably like wrap
bro,
it around all of us in it.
if,
Or two, about two or three products talk that is either the best sellers or let them not be as a trade name, but as a molecule. Look at which molecule is that none. I could look if that product is of origin. Natural. Artificial, read what? From the vademecum, you tell me. See if there are studies why review this topic.
Yeah,
what
like birth control versus Plan B.
that's a good one. Sure, and I believe that seems more appropriate. David, let's decide on these two components as you suggested. Is that agreeable?
And we talked about the two of us.
And we talk about the two of us, and logically, as Kevin says, he's going to see more statistics. I talk about the psychological field, you talk about the chemical field, and now it will be like the one that unifies the three.
I assume that she must have used more than one then, and each one must have generated a different effect on her. So it was to be good because, like her, there are many people who perhaps did not have the same reaction. But why in one, yes, in others, not? What did it cause? What did it cause? Can you talk about 2 or 3 products?
Certainly, the fascinating aspect of this subject is that there are numerous angles, no mechanisms, because there are people who get an injection, and that, as someone says, is more advanced than putting on a patch, so as not to get pregnant, than putting on this, what's the name of it?
A device.
In a device, or they put the labia in your intimate part, in your uterus. No, so there are so many things. That's why it covers a lot. Maybe we just focus on the pill, contraceptive, and the pill plan B. I don't know if it is there. You know what the plan is? I suppose so. You know what plan B is here, they call it.
Plan B, you pass me, and I check to check why. Because even devices in the copper T that has hormone release, for example, that is no longer just copper T, but this hormone release. Another thing. So there are many methods then. Like to talk about 1 or 2, I'm also going to consult with my wife.
Or if you'd like to invite her brother, it would truly be an honor to have you, your doctor, and your wife join us with her expertise. Perhaps we could frame our topics in a way where 1 month we discuss one subject, and the following month we spend a week talking about another, like the effects of the copper tea.
Yes.
We got to tell Autumn that, yeah. We just got to tell Autumn that, like, for example, this, and it's true what David is saying. We have to make different chapters, like, and I think it's interesting. Plan B and the birth pills, and then we'll go into like the more complex ones, like the injections, the the what you call it, the all the anti I'm sorry, all the other mechanisms to prevent being getting pregnant. We can talk about that, in every week and a month we'll talk about that. And but then again, I would just ask Autumn, like, which one will be the subject we need to study, so we can come and embrace, and we'll call it the Women Week, Health Week event from the Ethics Guild podcast. We love our women, so we owe it to you, ladies.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds perfect.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So thank you once again. Thank you for sticking us with us at the Ethics Guild podcast. We hope you had a lot of fun. Yes, it's in Spanglish. Communication doesn't have barriers when there's love, when there's friendship, and this is us right here with our friend, and he's actually a co-host with us, David Andrade, our favorite, and I would say our own chemist in the show, David Andrade. So, guys, I really value you, David. The years of friendship. Kevin, you already know you're my boy. One of my best friends, and also somebody I consider like a little brother to me. And he knows that I love him and Autumn, and the same way with you, David. And thank you for this lovely episode. We learned so much about preservatives, but that's not all. We are going into preservatives, skin preservatives, like what's in your skincare. That's what we're also going furthermore. But we're going to touch about, that plan B, and we're going to talk about those birth control pills, the effects on the woman body. Stay tuned. Don't forget, subscribe, comment, like. And if not, Kevin, if you guys subscribe, Kevin will eat a banana every day for a whole week.
We'll film it.
Well, you'll see his face like, yeah, throw it. I hate bananas, by the way. David,
How to do it?
you don't like it? He eats everything until onions, food. I brought him onions. He ate guatita.
Kevin eats everything. He's not Miss.
Don't you like bananas?
I mean, no, it's not. It's not. Banana's enemy is
his arch rebel.
Potassium, I hate it.
I detest potassium with a passion.
Muscle wear, cramping.
Good.
It's the radiation in me. It's the radiation of bananas.
It's the kryptonite, bro.
It's not kryptonite.
Yes. It says it has a radioactive isotope, but the amount is very small. Yes, it has, yes. Potassium is radioactive, it is true. Yes, but the amount is very small. Yes, it has potassium in different compositions, even radioactive potassium, yes.
Oh, that is. Maybe one day we make an episode about bananas and why Kevin hates them so much because of that radiation.
It's gonna make me glow in the dark.
No, lo que pasa es que si come banana se hace un X-Men.
Yeah, he become an X-Men, bro. Become like Magneto or something.
X-Men. X-Men.
Don't be Wolverine, bro. You live like 500 years or something like that. Yeah, whatever. So thank you guys for staying with us. We will see you next week. Stay tuned.
I'm trying to coexist.